Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I hope your weekend was really good. I hope you had a fantastic weekend. Um, Slowly rising. My voice is a little bit raspy, so I do apologize in advance. I didn't do anything crazy this weekend. Since the mid last week, I just been, I guess, fighting one of those like little scratchy throat things. I'm not sure what you would call it, but I'm really happy to see you all, and I'm very excited to be having this live stream with you all today. I'm rocking my purple. It looks blue on screen now that I look at it, but it actually is purple in real life. Purple, HIV is hopeful in victory. Um, some hoodies that I produced way, way back when I first started my channel. I'd probably love to do that again, but we'll see what happens, what the universe decides to manifest. But I woke up feeling very, a lot on my mind, not particularly about anything, right? Just a lot of thoughts, and did a lot of meditation this morning, about an hour of some meditation, and it was really good. I felt very, very positive coming out of it. And yeah, I'm excited to go ahead and start this HIV's news report, March 27th at 7 a.m. on the dot. Okay, on the dot, right? No CPT. But I just want to thank you all and just say hello, good morning, welcome to my channel. My name is Dion Dusty Lion. Whoops, I didn't want to throw that one up. I'm gonna throw up my lower third so you all see that. Dion Dusty Lion right there. I'm the host of HIV News Report as well as HIV Talks. I'm so excited to be here with you all today for this live stream. Today we're going to be talking about news around entertainment, general news, updates within public health, and ways that you can get engaged locally or nationally with your community, and as well as some national events. But most importantly, I want you all to get involved in your community and mobilize around things that you're passionate about, right? So I hope you all are excited as I am to get started today. But you know what we do before we start? We start with a dab of some tea. So get your mug, get it going. I got my Washington mug. This is the mug that I got back in 2021. I visited a friend who lives in Pullman, Washington. Such a beautiful place. We like went hiking on this huge mountain, smoke a doobie. It was beautiful, and we came down the mountain, and it was so frightening because it was just pitch black. It was just pitch black. You could not see anything, and we got so scared because we had to walk through this like stretch of gravel, and the evergreen just covered. So like before it began that stretch, the evergreen didn't really cover the sky, and at least you can see the stars and stuff. But when you got to the stretch to get to the car, you could not see nothing. I was next to my friend. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is terrifying, but this is so fun. Like something could jump out on us at any moment, which is actually not very fun. But we got to the car. You do that like that last minute run because you think something's behind you. So we kind of did that and got in and made our way down the mountain. It was so beautiful, and I just wanted to memorize or immortalize that experience with my friend. She also took care of me when I got sick while I was there. I think just from the flight and stuff like that, because I was working while I was traveling. I was working on a project actually, and just wanted to get this mug at the little cute little Washington little airplane station you got there, little airport. It's really cute, but just want to just acknowledge that and just take a sip out of this particular mug today. So let's get to it. Now this one doesn't have a positive affirmation or a mantra. This is just a typical tea. It's a dream. It's lavender. It's really meant for it has like chamomile, lavender in it. Really meant for like chilling out and just kind of getting prepared for bed. we're not getting prepared for bad. We're getting prepared for news and tea. And there's a lot going on, particularly with this first story. So I just wanted to take a moment to take a sip of that tea, acknowledge that, and give you some love and light as we start to wake up. I want to thank my supporters. I want to thank you all for sharing my video. Thank you for being here and enjoying the content that I put out. Without you, the stream it wouldn't be possible, really, right? Because I wake up and I do this, and I don't do it for the accolades. I do it because information sharing is power. Knowledge is power. But throughout this stream, I encourage you to ask questions that you may have. Drop it in a chat, and I'll do my best to answer them. I'll also be dropping the news stories, just particular sources that I pulled from, and try to drop that in the chat so you can go ahead and take a look at that if you want to give it a read yourself. I have a new setup this news report, so things are going to be a little bit different. Please give me mercy, give me grace, but anywho, sit back, have this playing in the background while you get your morning started or your day started, and we're gonna go ahead and jump into our first story of today. And that story is Tennessee's rejection of an 8.8 million in federal funding alarms HIV prevention groups. Now, I'm not sure if you all were here in my last discussion and even the previous discussion, but I've been following this story because it is actually relatively significant considering Tennessee being one of those states with high rates of HIV diagnosis. And according to the CDC, I think it's the top 10 states that really needs this support. So for this to happen, it is very alarming and maybe could set a precedent, which we would not want. But regardless, recently the state of Tennessee has sparked controversy and outrage over its decision to redirect federal funding meant for HIV/AIDS treatment and prevention to other healthcare services. The decision made by Republican-led legislator has been met with widespread criticism and condemnation from healthcare advocates, local lawmakers, and affected communities. The decision by Tennessee's Republican-led legislature to redirect the 1.1 million in federal funding meant for HIV/AIDS treatment and prevention to other healthcare services have sparked outrage and concern among advocates, lawmakers, and affected communities. The state's department has notified HIV/AIDS service organizations across the state that their contracts will not be renewed at the end of the concurrent, not co-current, but concurrent fiscal year. Instead of the funding will be diverted to their other public health programs such as diabetes prevention and infant mortality reduction. This move has been viewed as a direct attack on the state's already underfunded and struggling HIV programs, which serve marginalized and at-risk populations, including Black and LGBT communities. And honestly, when I read this story, I put this together and I'm just like, this feels like breadcrumbs. This feels like Tennessee's governor does not want to actually look for funding to solve problems that are affecting Black people and people of color, right? Diabetes, infant mortality, that's high within people of color communities, particularly among Black women and also in the Black community. But instead, we're going to take funds that are meant to help a certain population within the Black community and divert it into something else versus looking or advocating and pulling in new funds to support those programs. So it just seems like a bait and switch. And it's really disappointing because it just goes to show that our community is left to like look for or pull from crumbs and scraps as if we already aren't to try to survive and try to move towards the national HIV prevention goals. But anywho, this move has been made a direct attack, honestly, and I think it has. HIV/AIDS service organizations have warned that the cuts would lead to significant reduction in testing, prevention, and treatment services, ultimately resulting in an increase in new infections and HIV-related deaths. This decision has been met with some swift backlash, which is great, from various sources and quarters, with advocates arguing that this move may or would have devastating impact on the state's HIV-positive population, which stands at over 15,000 people. Currently known, right? This is a known number, so there could be more. Opponents of the decision have accused the state prioritizing political ideology over public health and have called on Tennessee's Governor Bill Lee to reverse the cuts. Local lawmakers, have also spoke out against the move, with State Senator Ramesh Akbari calling it unconscionable and immoral, and State Representative Gloria Johnson calling it a direct attack on the most vulnerable among us. HIV/AIDS has been considered a public health crisis for some time now, since its appearance in the 1980s, disproportionately affecting marginalized communities such as black men who have sex with men, black transgender women, cis black women, and many other communities such as Latinx communities, and of course other at-risk populations. The lack of adequate resources and support has hindered efforts to curb the epidemic. It remains to be seen whether Tennessee's Republican-led legislature will reverse its decision and prioritize the health and well-being of its citizens. In the meantime, advocates in affected communities are ramping up their efforts to raise awareness and demand action to address this urgent issue. If you're seeking to learn more about this particular topic, I am going to go ahead and drop this in the chat here, and you can go ahead and give that a look. And I see that I'm having a little bit of an issue here with Restream. Gotta give me a second. Let me refresh my chat for you all. Just want to get it synced because it does this every now and then. Close. I'm not sure why it does this, to be quite honest. I don't know, I have to have my mods look at it because it won't come through. That's disappointing. Well, I guess I won't be able to share the stories right now. So sad. Okay, well, you know what? The show must go on, right? In our next story, STI PEP seeks to mirror HIV success. A new initiative called Sexually Transmitted Infection Post-Exposure Prophylaxis seeks to replicate the success of HIV prevention efforts by increasing access to preventative treatments for STIs. The initiative comes as STI rates continue to rise in the United States, with cases of chlamydia, gonorrhea, and syphilis reaching record highs in recent years. The STI PEP initiative aims to provide preventative treatment to people who may have been exposed to STI through sexual contact, similar to the way in which HIV PEP is currently used to prevent HIV transmission. The treatment would involve a combination of antibiotics, antiviral medication, which would be prescribed and administered by health providers within 72 hours of exposure. The initiative has been met with enthusiasm from healthcare workers, providers, and advocates who see it as a promising tool to address the growing STI epidemic in the United States. However, some experts have raised concern about the potential for overuse and misuse of treatment, as well as the potential for a drug-resistant strains of STIs to emerge. According to the CDC, there were over 2.5 million cases of chlamydia, gonorrhea, and syphilis reported in the United States in 2022 alone, marking a significant increase from previous years. The STI PEP initiative seeks to address this trend by providing a new tool for preventing the spread of STIs, particularly among high-risk population. The success of HIV prevention efforts in the United States has provided a model for how targeted interventions can have a significant impact on public health. The STI PEP initiative seeks to replicate this success to expanding access to preventative treatment for STIs and reducing the burden of those infected or these infections on individuals and communities. The initiative is still in its early stages. However, advocates and healthcare providers are optimistic about its potential to make a meaningful impact on the STI epidemic in the United States. As the initiative moves forward, there will likely be continued discussions about how to balance the benefits of preventative treatment with concerns about overseas and misuse. I can share that in the chat, so if you want to learn more, you just let me know. I'll do my best to check that out. Actually, I'm going to try something here. Gonna see what I can do here. Can I drop it there? No, I would be commenting as myself, and I don't want to comment as myself. I'll just have to work with mods on this. Sorry, everyone. Moving on to our third story. Now, this is the third story that I told you all that is a little bit different, a little bit unique because I'm trying some new things out of here. So I'm gonna do this. There we go. This is just an ad. It'll pass. This too shall pass. But there we go. But in this third story, Uganda passes a law making it a crime to identify as LGBT, which is very scary considering everything that's happening in the world. I want to go ahead and play a little bit of what's happening here. Bring this back. Okay.
In our country, we will have our morals. We will protect our children. And we are making this law. We are making this law for ourselves. We are making this law for our children. We are making this law for the children of our children. This country will stand firm. And once it passes, I can tell you, Madam Speaker, we are going to reinforce the law enforcement officers to make sure that homosexuals have no space in Uganda. In Uganda, stand.
He said that so vilely, but as you can see, the things that are happening in the United States are having ripple effects in other countries. It's just so sad. Uganda has passed a new bill that bans the promotion of homosexuality and makes it illegal to identify as LGBTQ+. The bill, which has passed on March 21st, has been criticized by human rights advocates who argue that it violates fundamental human rights and will lead to an increased discrimination and prosecution of LGBT plus individuals. The bill, officially known as the Sexual Offenses Bill 2023, criminalizes any act or statement that is perceived as promoting homosexuality, including public discussion or advocacy of LGBTQ plus rights. It also imposes harsh penalties for those who identify as LGBTQ plus, including up to 10 years in prison for anyone convicted of aggravated homosexuality, which includes acts such as same-sex marriage or sex with a person under the age of 15. The passing of the bill has been met with the condemnation from human rights organizations and LGBT advocates who warn that it will lead to an increased discrimination and violence against those individuals in Uganda. Some have also offered and raised concerns about the potential impact on HIV prevention efforts, as stigma and discrimination against LGBT individuals have shown to contribute to the spread of the virus. This is not the first time that Uganda has attempted to pass an anti-LGBTQ plus legislation. In 2014, a similar bill was passed, but later overturned on a technicality. The current bill has been in the works for several years and has faced criticism from both domestic and international human rights campaign organizations. Uganda has a long history of discrimination attempting to pass anti-LGBT legislation. Uganda has a long history and probably will continue so as it follows the rhetoric of other countries, particularly the United States, and this sort of anti-LGBT thing, and anti-LGBT campaigns being a thing to protect children, which is so not true. But as of now, it is unclear how the bill will be enforced and what the impact will be on the LGBTQ plus community in Uganda. However, human rights organizations are calling on the international community to condemn the legislation and to support efforts to promote tolerance and equality for all. If you want to get involved with this, I actually found this story in a community group that I'm in called the Choice Agenda through AVAC. You can find the Choice Agenda on AVAC's website, avac.com or .org, I think, one of the two. But if you just search the Choice Agenda, so easy to sign up. There's a lot of conversations going on around this because this is a very alarming and very shocking story, as you can tell. Advocates try to halt a wacky, dangerous book from an HIV denialist. Advocates are calling for a controversial book that promotes HIV denialism to be removed from circulation. Let's not ban drag queens and queer books that explore the stories and experience of people who actually live and who are making an impact on our world. But let's not ban a book about HIV denialism? Okay. Anywho, the book titled How to End the AIDS Epidemic in Africa rejects the AIDS theory and myth, was written by a self-proclaimed HIV denialist and has been criticized by medical professionals and HIV and AIDS advocates for spreading dangerous misinformation. HIV denialism is the belief that HIV does not causes AIDS and that HIV medications are unnecessary or even harmful. This belief has been debunked by numerous scientific studies, and scientists, and is not supported by the medical community. Despite this, the book has been circulating in some African countries, including Uganda and Nigeria, and has reportedly been used as a resource for HIV prevention programs. Advocates warn that this could lead to a dangerous increase in HIV infections and decrease in the use of life-saving HIV medications. In response, a coalition of HIV/AIDS organizations and advocates have launched a campaign to stop the distribution of the book. The group has called on Amazon, which is currently selling the book, to remove it from their platform, and has also reached out to the African government to take action against the promotion of HIV denialism. The campaign has gained traction, with several organizations and individuals speaking out against the book and calling for action. However, the book continues to be available for purchase on Amazon and other online retailers. So if you want to get involved, you know what you need to do, especially us and here in the United States. So easy to leave a review, so easy to share on social media how we feel about this, right? The promotion of HIV denialism is a serious issue that undermines efforts to prevent and treat HIV/AIDS. It is important that accurate and factual information about HIV/AIDS is made widely available, that misinformation and dangerous beliefs are challenged and corrected. The ongoing campaign is a campaign to stop the distribution of this book is an important step in the fight against HIV denialism and the spread of misinformation about HIV/AIDS. I encourage you to take a look at the story. It was produced by pause.com. We're moving on to our next story, dealing with racial power dynamics in HIV care. Question everything. The Body, a leading HIV/AIDS news and information website, recently hosted a virtual event titled Racial Power Dynamics: Collective Conversations on HIV. The event aimed to address the racial disparities in HIV/AIDS prevention and treatment and to facilitate conversations about solutions to these disparities. The event The event featured a panel of experts and advocates, including Dr. Oni Blackstock, who I follow on LinkedIn. She is so intelligent. I encourage you all to take a look at her LinkedIn page. She's very thoughtful, and she shares great information. The panel also features Assistant Commissioner for the New York City Health Department's Bureau of HIV and AIDS Prevention and Control, and Bruce Richmond, Executive Director of Prevention Access Campaign. The panelists discuss the ways in which structural racism contributes to the unequal distribution of HIV/AIDS prevention and treatment research on how to address these disparities. Now, for some reason, I'm not sure why this is pulling up on my other screen, but let me go ahead and get the right one pulled up here. We're on story 5. Okay.
Let's keep it 100. We're Black. And there is a lot of, I don't want to call it mistrust, I want to call it distrust, because I have a reason not to trust this person based upon actual evidence.
That's right, that's distrust.
When you think about that and sort of racial power dynamics that can exist with a provider, I'm always one to say that, like, first of all, we put up this paradigm between the doctor who is like above us with their like white lab coat, which makes them a superhero not to be questioned. And we know that only 5% of practicing physicians in this country are Black, which means that there are a lot of doctors out there who are white and who may not mean to perpetuate white supremacy, but let's be honest, when you have a power dynamic like that, it happens. And so I'm curious if you have any advice on how to diffuse that situation so that we are both working together to attain optimal health for you. I am in service of your health. I'm not above it.
I have so many thoughts about that because what you just communicated, I'm like, yes, that's exactly how I feel. I want to start with this. I really denounce the idea that it's the burden is on us as patients or as folks seeking care to diffuse and or to improve that space. Like that's a huge responsibility where we have to kind of come into this space and, well, let me see how I can talk to you or engage with you so we can make this better for both of us. And I didn't even create this social condition. Mm-hmm. You are not only did you or the organization or the profession that you are representing created, but you are complicit in it if you aren't being active right now in diffusing it. So I so bad want to help take folks off the hook of feeling like they have to come into this space and prefix it. But I get it because we kind of do, because we are the knowledge bearers. We know the experience that we deserve, and we bring that into the space. But I so hate that that's a responsibility that we have.
To her extent, I can so relate because I recall a story, an experience, a doctor visit that I had recently back in February, where I had started with a new primary care doctor, and she was so oblivious to HIV and really HIV now, right? When I expressed to her that I was HIV positive, her response was, "Oh my gosh, that's so sad. I'm so sorry." I remember back when I first started going into my doctor's program, there was a patient that I was drawing blood from, and the vial had not the vial but the actual needle came out the wrong way, and it squirted into my eyes. And she said, for 10 years I thought I had HIV, and then it may turn into AIDS, and it was so terrible and terrifying. And I just didn't know what to do, and so I was so concerned. And she was, in some ways she was projecting, in some ways it was very ignorant, and in a lot of ways she wasn't really getting to what current medications and things are out there now. She wasn't aware of PrEP. She was not aware of antivirals, that particularly that I was on, which is, I give her that. But particularly with PrEP, because I'm not sure if she's ever administered that. But to this extent, it's not anyone's responsibility to create a safe environment for a doctor. That's not our job. I hear some of those conversations as well where, some professionals don't want to engage in that work because they know what type of sensitivity and vulnerability that it is, and they don't want to get it wrong. And because of that, they don't want to engage in it entirely. Well, someone has to, and it has to be you, honey boo boo. So get it together. But on top of that, if you're seeing that as an issue within yourself, then that gives you all the reason to engage in that, because you're here to support that individual seeking support in their health and managing their health as well. You're not necessarily above them. So when you are creating that space, you have to create that space with cultural competency, with morality, with ethical competency as well, and really think about how you're talking to folks in a way in which you're not projecting some things that you may perceive in your experience. But one of the key takeaways from this particular event was the importance of centering the voices and experience of communities of color in HIV/AIDS prevention and treatment efforts. The panelists emphasized the need for community-led initiatives and for healthcare providers to prioritize cultural competency and sensitivity in their work. Additionally, the panelists discussed the need for increased funding for HIV/AIDS prevention and treatment programs, which is it's always discussed. This needs to be prioritized all the time, alongside cultural competency training, particularly those that serve communities of color. They also call for policies that address for social determinants of health, such as poverty and discrimination, which contributes to the unequal distribution of HIV/AIDS resources. The event was part of a larger movement to address racial disparities in the HIV/AIDS prevention and treatment, which has been exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic, which we are still living in. Advocates are calling for increased funding, policy changes, and community-led initiatives to address these disparities and ensure that all individuals have access to life-saving HIV/AIDS prevention and treatment medication resources. If you want to learn more about this story, I encourage you to go to the body. They have the full story there and the full recording. I encourage you all to take a look at that. It is quite beautiful. And Dr. Oni, as well as the other panelists, give great insight on how we can get involved in community. The FDA grants clearance for fast point-of-care STI test for women. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration has granted clearance for a new fast point-of-care STI test for women. The test, called the X-Sure's Women's Health STI Test, is designed to detect the presence of chlamydia, gonorrhea, and trichomoniasis in vaginal swabs collected by healthcare providers. I can't believe I just said trichomoniasis like that. That just rolled off my tongue like a bad bitch. I did that. Go you. According to the press release by the manufacturer's test, MedMira Inc., the X-Sure's Women's Health STI test provides a result in just 15 minutes, allowing healthcare providers to diagnose and treat patients more quickly. The test is also designed to be easy to use with no special training or equipment required. The approval of this new test comes at a critical time as rates of STI continue to rise in the United States. As I mentioned earlier, it's quite a significant amount of these diagnoses last year in 2022. And particularly rates of chlamydia and gonorrhea have reached record high in recent years, with women and young people disproportionately affected by this. Experts say that fast point-of-care tests like X-Sure Women's Health STI test can play a key role in helping to address this growing public health challenge. By making it easier and more convenient to get tested, these tests can help increase the number of people who are diagnosed and treated for STIs, which in turn can help reduce the spread of these infections. However, some experts caution that while point-of-care tests like this one can be useful, they are not replacement for regular comprehensive STI screening. In my opinion, I'm like, why would you even produce it? But I get it. You want something quick and easy to get folks aware of what their status is, but you don't want it to be a replacement or something that they lean on. But we have to advocate for it, because oftentimes when services and demands aren't available or resources aren't available for a comprehensive STI testing and screening, a lot of organizations don't have a choice but to use that point of care or that point of care test and kit for communities that have lack of access or lack of resources. So this is not necessarily a question to us, but or a statement to us per se, public health officials, but this would be a statement to government officials and public health executives when it comes down to funding. So I hope that they are aware of this. This includes not only expanding access to fast point of care tests, but also increases education and awareness about STIs, promoting safer sex practices, and ensuring that all individuals have access to afford high quality health care. If you want to learn more about that story, I encourage you to take a look at the Helio.com, the news, and that way you will find it under the Women's Health OBYN category. But moving on to our next story, research finds that HIV drug PrEP's popularity soars, but only with white men. A study has found that while the use of pre-exposure prophylaxis medication to prevent HIV infection has become increasingly popular, it is mostly being used by white men, highlighting racial disparities in HIV prevention and treatment. The study, which was published in the Journal of Acquired Immune Deficiency Syndrome, found that while PrEP use among white men has increased by 30% since 2018, use among Black and Latino men has remained stagnant. Furthermore, the study found that PrEP use among women and transgender individuals of all races is still very low. Experts point to a number of social determinants of health that contribute to these racial disparities, including lack of access to healthcare, which is one I just mentioned, racism, another one, cultural competency, and information about PrEP and its usage, cultural stigma surrounding HIV, and systemic racism in the healthcare system. Quote, PrEP is a highly effective tool for preventing HIV transmission, but we need to do a better job of ensuring that it is accessible to all communities, especially those that have been historically marginalized, said one of the authors in the study. Advocates are calling for increased funding for PrEP education and outreach, as well as more culturally competent care for marginalized communities. They are also highlighting that the need to address systemic issues like racism and poverty that contribute to disparities in HIV prevention and treatment. If you want to learn more about this story, I encourage you to check out thepinknews.com, where you can find this under the category of the 2023 March edition's publications. Moving to our last story of today, understanding HIV care, everything you need to know. I want to just go ahead and get this a wrap up. This photo was actually credited by Timothy Ray Brown, known as the Berlin patient, was the first person cured of HIV. This is an image of him. Image is credited to TJ Kirkpatrick at Getty Image. Scientists and researchers have been working on developing a cure for HIV since the virus was first identified in the early 1980s. Despite major advancements in treatment, a complete cure has remained elusive. But now a new article in Live Science provides an overview of latest research in progress towards finding a cure. The article explains the different approaches to finding a cure, including the kick and kill strategy, which involves waking up the dormant virus and then attacking it with antiviral drugs. Another approach is gene editing, where scientists use a technique called CRISPR. I'm just going to spell that, CRISPR, to remove the HIV virus from infected cells. There are also efforts to develop a vaccine that can prevent people from getting infected in the first place. The article notes that there have been a few cases where people have been cured of HIV, including the famous Berlin patient who also received a bone marrow transplant from a donor with a rare genetic mutation that make them resistant to HIV. More recently, there have been reports of two patients in the UK who were cured of HIV after receiving a gene therapy treatment. Don't forget that Dr. Sabi, who also has treated patients with HIV and other patients with chronic illnesses and illnesses as well as sexually transmitted illnesses with just medicinal herbs, proven to cure HIV and other viruses. So the cure is definitely among us surface dwellers. It's just a matter of getting that into the hands and where the money needs to be, right? However, this article cautions that a complete cure for HIV is still a long ways off. I had my doubts, but we'll see. Researchers continue to face challenges such as a virus's ability to hide in cells and evade the immune system, as well as a high cost and complexity of developing and delivering a cure. Despite these challenges, researchers remain optimistic and committed to finding a cure for HIV. As the article concludes, there is no doubt that the global HIV community is closer than ever to finding a cure, but there's still much work to be done. Overall, the Live Science article provides a comprehensive and up-to-date overview of the efforts to cure HIV, highlighting both the progress that has been made and the challenges that remain. If you would like to learn more about this particular article, go to livescience.com and you can find this article in their featured section. But we're going to be moving on to our next category. And I'm so excited about this because I'm bringing something new to you all, right? I'm something good for you all. And I just want to go ahead and start it off with just saying that we're going to be doing a little bit of fun with our breaking news segment. Really, breaking news is not necessarily news, but breaking news to me is news about entertainment, what's out there. So I'm breaking it to you girlies about some ballroom history 101 that I came across this past week on TikTok, and I just think you all just have to see it. So let's go ahead and get this on the screen and get it in your faces, okay? Boom.
In the 80s, you had Candy LaBeija. She was the token big girl. You had Monica Extravaganza, which was the token Spanish big girl. Then coming into the 90s, you had Sandy Dior.
I love Sandy down, honey. Sandy is the original big girl for the House of Mizrahi. Like I said in that live, Miss Thing. She is that, Miss Thing.
Miss Thing, y'all never seen a clip with Sandy Dior when she snatched her wig off, bitch, and she...
It's time for a Ballroom History 101 highlight. Because of the huge impact that she had on the community in the city, many people assumed that Sandy was from Baltimore. But Sandy was actually from Bushwick, New York. Sandy began participating in ballroom in 1986, first joining the House of Pendavis, then Bijan, then Chanel, then Richards. But Sandy made her name when she joined the House of Mizrahi in 1993. Sandy quickly became known as the Mizrahi's first femme queen. By the mid-90s, throughout ballroom, Sandy was known as one of the girls who you would have to see on the runway, and she wasn't going to make it easy for you. Sandy mastered the categories of Old Way, Femme Queen Performance, Femme Queen Realness, and Femme Queen Runway. And during the height of her popularity, Sandy decided to venture out and start her own house family. Along with a mysterious, dramatic Butch Queen performer, Sandy and Mystery started the House of Dior in 1995. Sandy was very stern in protecting her family and her house's name from the ballroom shade and politics. And with that stern, heavy hand, Sandy quickly began being known in ballroom as the female Suge Knight. Her name on the floor quickly became a popular name in the streets. It was during this time that Sandy sparked a friendship with Dana Owens of Club Buns in Baltimore. Allegedly, Sandy was deemed a menace to society in New York. It is rumored that officials and law enforcement urged Sandy to leave New York. Regardless, Sandy did flee the city and left for Baltimore, Maryland. In Baltimore, Sandy quickly developed a family and her house grew very fast. Sandy's house, her actual residence, began being known in Baltimore as a hub for exiled and abandoned queer youth. All of the queer kids were welcomed at Sandy's for a bite to eat or a place to stay, whether or not they were official member of the House of Dior. Sandy brought the House of Dior to Baltimore in '96, but by 2000, Dior was one of the premier houses in the Baltimore ballroom scene. During this time, Sandy also nurtured her friendship with Dana Owens of Club Buns, and together they helped solidify Club Buns as a staple in the ballroom scene. Not long after she began carving the name Dior into ballroom history, Sandy was arrested for manslaughter. Rumor has it that Sandy was leaving an after-hours spot. In Baltimore, it's common for the after-hour spots to be integrated between the queers and the straights. While leaving the venue, Sandy was approached by a man. The man was flirting with Sandy and asked her for a number. Sandy claims that the man overreacted after she admitted that she was trans. By Sandy's own admission, she claimed that the man punched her, knocked her down, and she responded with a blade. Ultimately, Sandy defending herself with the blade would result in the man losing his life. During Sandy's incarceration is when I was introduced to the House of Dior. During that time, Demetrius was the father of the Baltimore chapter. Dana and Misty were the mothers. Sandy left her oldest kids to run the house while she was away. After her release, Sandy returned to what she knew: mothering queer kids and the ballroom scene. However, Sandy wanted to do it differently this time. Instead of her focus being on the ballroom floor, Sandy became more focused in helping her children excel at life. Sandy also began her wellness journey, beginning with her own fight against substance abuse. Sandy became a house manager and peer counselor for Divine Light, a substance abuse recovery center that focuses on the LGBTQ population. In 2019, Sandy left the House of Dior and turned it over to her daughter, Honeycomb. Between the years of 2019 and 2021, Sandy was one of the mothers in the House of Machiavelli. And along with her iconic legendary status, in 2022, Sandy was deemed the matriarch of the House of Mizrahi. Sandy is no longer with us physically, but her legacy lives on. Sandy was one of the leaders in the Big Girls movement. Because of her and her cohort, we now have categories specifically for plus-size girls.
Indeed, her legacy lives on, and I hope you all enjoyed that piece of Ballroom History 101. Like I said, I plan to bring you all queer history as a way of support and of a lot of anti-queer banning in schools, and of course with critical race theory banning as well. So those are my intersections. So you'll be seeing a lot more of that content going on here. But moving into this next story, I have here: conservatives' legal movement challenges landmark case, the Gideon versus Dwayne Wright decision. The landmark 1963 Supreme Court decision in Gideon versus Wayne Wright, which ensured the right to an attorney for defendants who can not afford one, is being challenged by the conservative legal movement. The case, which originated in Florida, led to the establishment of the public defender's office across the country and has been widely regarded as a cornerstone of the criminal justice system. However, some conservative lawyers and legal scholars argue that the decision has led to a bloated and ineffective public defense system, and that private lawyers should play a larger role in representing indigent defendants. Sorry. They also claim that Gideon has been used to justify expansive interpretations of other constitutional rights, such as the right to health care or education. Critics of the movement warn that dismantling Gideon could lead to a return to the days when poor defendants were often left to represent themselves in court. The Supreme Court, which has shifted to the right in recent years, is seen as more sympathetic to conservative legal arguments, and the fate of Gideon could be at stake in future cases. Yeah, this is so crazy. Like, the way in which the country is moving, it is attacking in class and race and sex and gender, at all ways to really show to really make sure that people do not have any sort of power, any way to represent themselves. This is a very alarming case. I advise you to strongly watch this case and follow it at ballandstrike.org under the laws and politics category. Moving into our next story. We're going to go ahead and pull this up. I know you all have been aware of this, but you know about the Congress ban that's been taken on, that very popular, the very popular social media app TikTok has been at the center of controversy for some time now. The app, which is owned by a Chinese company, ByteDance, has been accused of collecting user data and sharing it with Chinese government. As a result, there has been calls to ban the app in the United States. TikTok CEO Kevin Mayer testified before the Congress in August 2020, assuring lawmakers that the companies, let's go ahead and get that pause first and get this up here, because y'all gotta hear that. Lawmakers that the company's data is stored in the United States and is not subjected to Chinese law. However, the pressure on the company continued, and former President Donald Trump issued an executive order in August 2020 demanding that TikTok be sold to a U.S. company or face ban in the country. And in my opinion, this is just people mad because they're not getting their dollars. Facebook is not getting its money. There was a article that I came across that Mark Zuckerberg paid lobbyists or campaigners and lobbyists to try to consort this sort of effort against TikTok because they couldn't, Facebook wasn't able to replicate the model that TikTok had, and as well as the popularity. But this goes a lot further. Into September 2020, Oracle and Walmart agreed to buy a 20% stake in the newly created company TikTok Global, which would manage the app's operation in the United States. See what I'm saying there? Get where I'm going? However, the deal was never finalized, and the Biden administration put the sale on hold to review it. As of now, there is no clear indication what will happen with TikTok in the United States. The company is still operating, but in the future is uncertain. Some lawmakers have called for a complete ban on the app, while others have urged the Biden administration to continue with the proposed sale to Oracle and Walmart.
Safety of one of the most popular social media apps in the world. TikTok CEO testified before a House committee yesterday over allegations that Beijing could use the platform to obtain information about American users. Nicole Killian reports from Capitol Hill.
TikTok's chief executive was met with intense skepticism on Capitol Hill Thursday over the app's security and privacy practices.
We do not trust TikTok will ever embrace American values.
Shouzi Chu tried to dispel lawmakers.
Which I'm like, American values? Are you being honest? I mean, TikTok is transcending American values.
Concerns about China's access to American data since its parent company ByteDance is based in Beijing.
ByteDance is not owned or controlled by the Chinese government.
But when pressed repeatedly,
do ByteDance employees in Beijing have access to American data?
We have employees in China, so yes.
Has ByteDance spied on American citizens?
I don't think that spying is the right way to describe it.
Committee members argue the platform remains a national security threat.
You damn well know that you cannot protect the data and security of this committee or the 150 million users of your app, because it is an extension of the CCP.
Chu said the company is working to build a firewall dubbed Project Texas to store and protect user data in the U.S.
I have seen no evidence that the Chinese government has access to that data.
I find that actually preposterous.
The panel also probed what safeguards the app has to shield teens from harmful content.
TikTok could be designed to minimize the harm to kids, but a decision was made to aggressively addict kids in the name of profits.
After more than 5 hours, many weren't satisfied.
He was completely there. That's not sufficient.
In a statement, TikTok fired back, saying the day was dominated by political grandstanding.
Hi everyone, it's Show here.
Chu's testimony comes at a challenging time for the platform, which boasts more than 150 million American users.
But that's just a little bit of the story. I encourage you all to check more of it out at CBS News. I'm unable to drop the link in the chat, but I encourage you to take a look there. Thank you for your comment, Eric. If you're still watching, I do need to drink with some more tea because honey, when I tell you I am tongue-tied today, I am tongue-tied. You know what? Let me just sip some tea right now, actually. But I'm glad you're here watching. I hope you find this information quite useful. Going on to our next story today, drag is not dangerous. A dazzling roster of drag queen superstars is coming together for the Drag Isn't Dangerous telethon, which will raise awareness and funds for LGBTQ plus causes and organizations that support drag and trans performers, especially in areas that are under attack. Producer Entertainment Group, PEG, is spearheading this one-night-only digital event, having partnered with several LGBTQ plus companies and organizations that include GLAAD, Out TV, Trixie Cosmetic, come on Trixie, Serve Vodka, 5 Senses Reeling, among others. Tickets for Drag Isn't Dangerous are currently being sold for $20 at the moment. So I encourage you all, if you want to get in on this telethon, get in soon because it's coming up pretty quick here. The event will be live streamed on Sunday, May 7th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can find out more about this at the PEG Management Instagram account, or you can go to out.com under their drag category and you can search online Drag Isn't Dangerous telethon, and that way you can register your ticket. But we're going to be jumping into our next segment, and this is coming to our end of our day actually, and I told you I got a new setup here, so play with me. I'm moving pretty quickly, pretty efficiently on this, but going into our event of the day, there is so much happening this week in the world of HIV. Multicultural Mondays, which is hosting a National Women's and Girls HIV Awareness Day, how stereotypes and social determinants impact HIV prevention and treatment approaches for Black women. The objectives within this live webinar is to identify racial and gender stereotypes attributed to Black women, identifying some social determinants of health for Black women, and develop approaches to address unique ethnic and social factors impacting and prevention and treatment of HIV among Black women. So if you are eager to join that event, you can go ahead and find that at the SEAATC.com under their event category, and you can register from there. Our next story comes to us from a beautiful experience that I actually had. It's actually called Code in Place, and this Code in Place is actually a online community where you can learn how to code. I did this back in 2021. My friend at Penn State had introduced me to it. Stanford does this free online community for people who just want to learn code and get their wings developed in that area. And also, you can learn coding in ChatGPT. So in combination with this and that, I'm telling you, you will be a coding master and programmer in no time. But if you are interested in this Code in Place, here's a brief overview of this coming from the professor, Chris Pike, who I was in his class. He's a really funny person. But let's go here. Let's hear and see what Chris has to say.
Professor here at Stanford.
And my name is Maron Sahami. I get to do the same things as Chris.
Yeah. Together we teach...
What do we teach?
We teach Code in Place. It's a free, high-touch, welcome to computer science experience.
The idea was to help more people around the world learn about computing in the same way that we teach about computing here at Stanford.
If you want to learn, or if you want to learn how to teach, it's a big learning party. the background that you need for Code in Place is that you can come find the website.
Basically, if you're watching this video, you have the background to apply for Code in Place. You get to take part in this learning experience, but at the same time, you get to have a particular format where you learn in a small group.
I think one of the things that people want to know is, what do you learn?
What do they learn, Chris?
One of the most important things is what you build. You'll have 3 different assignments where you'll build different things using Python. The first one will be in this world called Carol, and then you'll learn core console Python programming, and then you'll learn some graphics programming, and to cap off your experience, you'll make an open-ended project.
And potentially build things that make your life and other people's lives better.
If you have a lot of programming experience and you want to get involved, there's a way for that. Just come teach.
Helps you hone your technical skills, but more importantly, it helps you bring other people in to understand how to do it, to demystify it.
As a student, you're going to meet 1 hour a week for 5 weeks.
And that live weekly section, that's a place where you interact in real time with someone who's there specifically to teach your group of students.
It does take some time. You should expect to be putting at least 10 hours a week into this.
But we think you'll get a lot out of it. One of the things that was really special to me about Code in Place is just the feedback that you heard from people about how much it meant to them, the actual learning that went on, being part of that community and having a sense that there is something bigger in the world that you're contributing to.
Come join.
I still have my notebook and my notes from this course. It was super fun. The live classes are so extremely helpful. I encourage you all, if you do want to learn Code in Place, check it out on your screen right there. Codeinplace.stanford.edu. If you have internet access, this will guaranteed be such a beneficial thing for you. Moving on to our next event we have is the Midwest Harm Reduction Virtual Institute. If you are interested in this particular event, I encourage you all to register at the QR code that's there on the screen. In the first day, which is going to be happening on a Wednesday, March 29th, 2023 at 2 p.m. to 3:30 Eastern Standard Time, there's going to be a beautiful live event, the resource launch of the Mutual Aid Support System by the Never Alone Project. You can also expect the following day, which is considered the official day 1, where like things are actually occurring. The Innovative Harm Reduction Practices and Strategies webinar that's going to be occurring from 1 to 4 p.m. Eastern or 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, you can register at the link, or you can go to bit.ly/AUHARMREDUX, and the event will finish off with an event on Friday on their second day for networking and self-care. So if you work in the environment of harm reduction, this is going to be the place that you will want to be. And on to our next event, No Place for Racism. This is an awesome event that was brought to me by my mentor. This is a, excuse me, did I forget this? Sorry, y'all. I just want to make sure I didn't. I didn't. Oh my gosh, thank gosh. Okay. I was like, oh my God, did I not write my caption? Transcend Diaz targets structural racism and discrimination and the Ryan White HIV/AIDS program. Funded in clinics by working with clinic members to create anti-racist policies and practices. Trans, and it spells so unique. It's capital TRA and lowercase NSCEN, capital DS. Aims to increase patient health and clinic workforce equity. This first project is of its kind. It focuses on federally designated ending the HIV epidemic areas in the Southeast United States. The event will help each clinic create a manual for structural racism and discrimination, reduction, and racial equity promotion. The Transcend DS is funded by the National Institute of Nursing Research and led by the Columbia University and RTI International. If you do want to register for this particular event, I highly recommend it. This is going to be such a fruitful conversation. You can get that information within the chat. Let me see. I still can't update it in there. Sorry, mods. I still can't get it. If you all can help me. But on to our last and final event before the closing of our show. We have the beautiful sexual networks, HIV and activism. a community-led study on queer sex in New York City. This will feature Dr. Calesto Macafone of the Harvard University, and as well as the other panelists. Let me get their name properly pulled up in here. Dr. Chloe Orkin, she's a professor of HIV medkin, the Queen Mary University of London. So this is going to be a webinar discussion, free, available to you, and I highly encourage you to check this out. But going into our last final goodbyes and
Hi, my name's Chris
seeing
Beach.
all your
I'm a
beautiful
professor here at
faces.
Stanford.
And my name is Marin Sahami. I get to do the same things as Chris.
Let me
Together we
remove
teach.
that.
What do we teach?
We teach code in place.
Code in place. This is not for you. You can't talk right now. Hi, sorry about that. I think I didn't mute my code in place command button. But I just want to go ahead and thank you all so much for joining me today for this particular live stream. Like I said, I appreciate you having some space and grace for me today. I redesigned my entire command board. It's so new, and I think I did a pretty good job today. But I want to thank you all for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed our discussion, the stories, and the information that I shared, and that you feel empowered and encouraged to do something, take action today, because that's what you can do. I'll be sharing a trailer tease of what you missed today, and I'll also be sharing some of the stories and some posts that you can get involved in just from your phone. So please take a moment. Remind yourself to subscribe to my channel, like my other networks, so you can see when those posts are going out. Feel free to discover me on my other platforms. You can find them at my Linktree, which is posted in my Instagram account bio. But if you aren't familiar with Linktree, go to Linktree. It's tree. Now, the tree is not spelled the way that you think it is. It's tr.ee/hopeful and victory. But I encourage you to check out my platform. That way you can follow me and see all the beautiful content that I'll be sharing with you this week and so forth. If you have any further questions, please feel free to leave them in my chat or reach out to me via email at therealdustylion@gmail.com. I always love hearing from you all and your feedback. It really shows me that you're engaged and that you appreciate the information that's being shared. But once again, thank you so much for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you all next week, Monday, live at 7 a.m., bright and early, with a cup of coffee or tea, whatever your preference is. It can be whatever you want, to be honest. But as long as you show up, show out, be present, and really absorb the information that I'm sharing with you. But as always, stay hopeful in victory. Be sweet and kind to yourself. I hope you have a magnificent day. I hope that you have a magnificent week. And as always, I'll see you next time. Bye.